All right, welcome. Let's go ahead and kick off. This is Project Portfolio Management with Atlassian. My name is Jacqueline Lauren. I'm a solution architect here at XPM, and with me is Sam Ayers.
Yeah, hi, nice to meet you guys. Awesome to be here. Excited to show you some tool options here and talk about portfolio management.
So we are both with XPM, which is a Valiantus company, and we are Atlassian Platinum Solution Partners. Sam and I have had the opportunity to work with a lot of customers over the past year, and we help them set up portfolios for their individual needs, also helping them integrate that with the Atlassian solutions. So we're really excited to be talking with you today. What we're going to cover today. So first of all, we're going to talk about why are you looking for a portfolio solution, some of the indications of why you're going to go down this path and spend the time. Then we're going to talk about tool options. Then Sam is going to walk us through a couple of tool deep dives. Then we're going to have a nod towards an additional couple of tools, and then we'll get to Q&A. All right, so before we talk about why you are looking for portfolio management, which I'm sure you probably have a good indication because you're here at this webinar, let's talk about what it is. So there's a lot of different ideas of what portfolio management is out there. And I think at least how we approach it with our customers is we are trying to get visibility into all the projects that a company is working on. That does also include when you're talking about strategic themes, but for the sake of this conversation, we're really going to focus in on the project level because that's something that translates across companies and portfolios. And so we can all connect with that. The idea is that we're trying to bring visibility into what the company is working on, but then also where we're at with any of those projects at any one time, and we can get real updates because it connects in so well with our Jira solution. So how do you know if you need it? If you're asking yourself or teammates the questions of, what are my teams working on? I know they're busy. I know they're all completely overloaded, but I don't really know where that effort is going. Are they working on the most valuable things? Are they working on the projects that we want them to, or are they responding to tickets that we might find less valuable? If you don't know if you can accept new projects right now, if your customers are saying, hey, we've got this great new year-long project, and you really genuinely don't know whether your teams have time to work on it and what work they're going to have to put aside if they do. If you find your dates for projects slipping all the time, that's also another good indication. So if towards the last couple months of your projects, it's usually a mad scramble, that's a really good indication that you could use some portfolio management help and some alignment there. And then, of course, fire drills. That kind of goes along with the date slippage and something that is near and not dear to all of our hearts. That, once you start to get towards the actual due date, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that we had all these pieces left and how much work we really have left. The idea, when you do this correctly, when you get your portfolio out there, built, visible, and aligned to the work in Jira, you can start to see that you're getting that alignment of, this is the project that we find the most valuable, here are all the teams that are working on it, and here is the progress that they're making. You're able to really understand capacity versus demand. So the capacity being our teams produce blank 40 story points every couple of weeks. And using that calculation, we can also take estimations and we can say the work out there, again, these are large estimations, so you don't launch rockets off these numbers, but it really gets you close and it really helps you become predictable. You help with bringing visibility to dependency management. So we have a lot of blockers across teams in most organizations, And a lot of that can just be tribal knowledge. The product owners reach out to each other, maybe the developers do. But once we start linking this and bringing visibility, like Sam's going to show us, we're also going to see these dependencies called out, which is extremely helpful. And then, of course, the whole point of this is becoming predictable, as we already talked about a little. So we're going to have a clear prioritization of goals. These are the products we find the most important, projects we find the most important. This is our number one, number two, so on. And in addition to that, we're going to know when they're going to be completed. So it's, again, this goes back to capacity and demand, but we're really going to get a very clear idea of where we're at and when we expect to finish. And then we can share that with our stakeholders and other teams. So not only is this a wonderful thing for leadership, leadership is always thrilled when we get this kind of visibility to them, but other teams are thrilled too. They know they have dependencies on other teams. They don't know where their work is sitting, how much time they have. And then of course your stakeholders, when you're able to say, this is the work that we have on your roadmap for the next year, and this is where it's lined up. And because we're more predictable now, we're starting to hit those dates with more frequency. Stakeholders love that kind of visibility. Fewer fire drills, which we've talked about. And then of course, we can mitigate the risk as we go because of that visibility. It doesn't go away, it just surfaces faster. Some things to consider when you're thinking about portfolio management. It is a people, process, then tools, meaning you really do have change management efforts that you do need to undergo. And Sam and I always joke, that's really the hard part, right? Mm-hmm. Getting people on board, getting them all aligned, figuring out what makes sense for us and our company. Mm-hmm. But you need those people to be bought in to use the tools that we're putting out, because even if we build the tools, we get all the right information in these tools. In order for it to be valuable, we need to keep people in those tools, referencing them, keeping the information fresh. And of course, you need the processes to leverage the information that we're putting in the tools. The good news is what we're talking about standing up actually has minimal impact to our teams. Another thing we get asked all the time is our teams have been through a lot of changes lately. We're not sure they're ready for something like this. What we build in any of the tools you're going to see, with the exception of Align that we'll give a nod to at the end, that's a little different. We're really building most of this on top of where the teams live today. So they will see a little bit of impact, but it's really mainly your leadership level, your portfolio level that will do the heavy lifting and see the major changes, the changes that we're making. The good news is you can start with a small group. I often tell people, start with a couple of teams. Maybe if you have a small portfolio, if you have them broken out, then we can start to understand what fields we should use, what columns, what process makes the most sense for us. And then we can roll it out more seamlessly to the larger audience. And that's a win. But the one thing I always say is be ready to get organized at the leadership level. So the same ask that we have of the teams of get all your work visible and let's get it prioritized and have clear indications of what success looks like. That is also something that we are going to ask of leadership, which is extremely helpful, but also can be a little daunting at first. So, but well worth it, trust us. All right, so the tool options that we're going to cover today. So we have 3 apps that Sam is going to walk us through demos of: Advanced Roadmaps, Structure and Structure Gantt, Big Picture, and Big Picture Enterprise. And then we're going to talk about Jira Line, but we are not going to give a demo of it today because of time. So, all right, so I'm going to pass this over to Sam so he can start walking us through Advanced Roadmaps.
Thanks, Jackie.
You bet.
All right, so as Jackie mentioned, we're going to go ahead and start with Advanced Roadmaps. And just as an overview before we actually jump into the tool, Advanced Roadmaps is a cross-project road mapping and visualization tool with team level capacity capabilities. As far as availability is concerned within the Atlassian ecosystem, it's available in Data Center and with Jira Cloud Premium, so something to keep in mind. Side note, I have to do a shameless plug for our cloud migrations team. If you're still on a server instance of Jira, you may know that server is getting deprecated early next year. We hope that you already have a plan in place. If not, we're more than happy to help you with that, but would be remiss if I didn't mention that just on the side. So feel free to reach out after the class if you have any questions in that regard. So as far as tool organization is concerned, the primary object in advanced roadmaps is a plan, and that's actually what you're looking at right now in this screenshot. And each plan has its own definable scope, views, scenarios, and permissions. And what's nice about advanced roadmaps is that you can commit changes that you make in your plan and have them actually take effect in Jira. And we'll show you actually that functionality here shortly. But just further highlighting the fact that you do have some seamless integration, being that it is an Atlassian tool. That being stated, this is something we get asked about a lot. It is not a Gantt chart. It's a live road mapping tool and should be treated as such. So for example, if I move something out in the plan, it's only going to move that specific item and not everything else with it, to put it simply. So just be thinking about it as another way to visualize work that lives in Jira. So with that, let's go ahead and move into the demonstration. Okay, so here's advanced roadmaps. The plan itself and what you're looking at on the screen here is it's broken up into essentially 3 different parts. You've got the issue hierarchy that you would expect to see on the left here. In this case, we're looking at a hierarchy that rolls up from bug and story and task up to initiative. And then you also have this field sections here, or this field section here. And then you've got the roadmap section. On the left, as I said, you have the roll-up. You can change views as well. So we're actually looking at an initiative planning view. If you go to this epic planning view, it gives you the opportunity to plan on that epic level. So it's just an easier way to visualize if you're only interested in planning on certain tiers, but still having that nice reference of what the epic is rolling up to parent-wise with the parent link field. In the middle, you can see the fields view here. All these fields are actually collapsed right now, but they can be expanded simply by clicking on them or dragging them back over. And then you have the opportunity to add additional fields as well. So these are some of the ones that I'm adding here. You can rearrange them here. And if I were to go into this menu here, I could actually consult a list of custom fields that are compatible that I can bring into the plan. With that, jumping over, let's go back to our initiative planning view here before I discuss this. I want to talk about date behavior. So as you can see on the right, time bars appear in the roadmap based on manually updated start and end dates. That being stated, parents can actually inherit their children's dates. And so an example of this is actually, you see this little roll-up icon here. And then how that's going to manifest on the right here is kind of what we call the barber pole time bar. And so if you see these arrows, you know that you're observing some kind of roll-up. You can manually update start and end dates. So to exemplify that, so I've got November 12th here and then January 23rd. I can update this date, and then you should see the bar expand just a little bit. So there's a manual option. And then lastly, there's an opportunity to actually just drop a bar right into the plan. So I can click into the plan here. And then what's really convenient is target start and target end date is automatically populated. One thing to note here too, you may notice that we're leveraging target start and target end as our date fields. I believe the new standard is start date and due date. But just knowing that you can actually customize, you're not married to target start and target end here. All right, so let's shift to talking about dependency behavior. So dependencies are handled via Jira links. As a side note, updating an issue's dates will not update its dependents. So just want to call that out very quickly. But Jira links don't achieve what we would expect in a Gantt chart. So again, going back to that, this is not a Gantt chart, can't say that enough, where you have start to start, start to finish, etc. Dependencies, if I were to create a dependency between these two stories, for example, are shown with this yarn here. If there was a problem with this dependency, it would actually depict as red, I believe. But what you can do is you can click into the dependency itself on the line, and then you can see exactly this issue and what blocking relationship or what linking relationship is being observed. Also within Jira, as you can probably surmise, if I were to go in and create a linking relationship, there's going to be a bi-directional aspect to that linking relationship, and it's going to manifest as a dependency within the plan. I would be really annoyed if I didn't show you this, because I think it's a really cool feature within Advanced Roadmaps. So I'm glad I remembered it just now. But there's this lovely dependencies report on the left panel here. And this just gives you a really just nice high level that's maybe arguably a little bit more manageable to deal with than having to scroll through the entire plan to see dependencies. So really like this view. This is something that we show, and it just makes executives' hearts sing.
It's a great view.
All right, so going back to our plan here, let's talk about sandbox capability. So just something important to note here, everything in a plan that you do, or what I've done thus far, is effectively you're already kind of in a sandbox when you're interacting with the plan until you commit those changes to Jira. So to highlight this, and I know I mentioned this earlier, there's this review changes button at the top where you have this wonderful summary of all the changes that you made. You can see when it was last modified and who modified it. And then you have the option to save those changes in Jira or discard them. And then in this case, you can also send updates for those notifications. So again, just further highlighting, if you're in a plan, you're in a sandbox. I'm going to go ahead and discard these changes though. You also have an extra layer of sandbox capability with the introduction of scenarios. So over here on the left, you can see this maybe best case with green box over here. This is just further highlighting there's another layer here with scenarios. So I can go to actually do a worst case scenario where I can go in here, adjust time frames, adjust issue fields, so on and so forth. And just something to note here is that the changes are very much different in this scenario versus the previous scenario that I showed you. So a lot of customization here, a lot of ability here to make changes in one scenario, leave them in another, hence best case, worst case scenario. So pretty cool. Let's move on to talking about resourcing behavior and capabilities. So resourcing within Advanced Roadmaps, again, another question we get asked about a lot, happens at the team level and not the individual level. So take that into consideration as you will. This is something we get asked about a lot, and it's important to note, actually, let me just jump to the teams section here, and this may be really helpful here. So teams, this is where I can actually manage the teams that are in my plan. You can see I've got capacity, sprint length represented here for each team. And then if I go in and edit one of these teams, you can add additional team members. I will say, quick side note, and you can see actually up here with this banner, Atlassian's in the middle of kind of revamping the teams process to where it'll be even more seamless integration with Advanced Roadmaps in Jira. So just a side note, more to come here. So this is where, though, I would manage my team's capacity and designate sprint length here. But just again, further highlighting no individual capacity functionality here within Advanced Roadmaps. All right. Real quick, I just want to show you this really cool feature, or I think it's pretty cool. There's an auto scheduler actually within Advanced Roadmaps. And auto scheduler does exactly what its name suggests. And so if I actually click auto schedule here, and I can check sprints, releases, and teams, and preview my results. And essentially what it's doing is it's looking at rank, assignee, story points, sprint info, and the list goes on. And then you'll see down here, this is Advanced Roadmaps suggestion on how I would handle these. So kind of a cool feature. And let me hit cancel here, though. We don't want to actually accept those changes. That would make our Jira admin not happy. Okay, and then let's, lastly, I just want to show you some of the sharing options with the plan. And so within Advanced Roadmaps, there's a wealth of sharing ability of your plan. If I click share on the top right, as you just saw, you can share a link with this to this plan directly. You can embed your plan in an iframe, which is pretty neat. You also have the option to generate a link and have this plan show as a macro in your Confluence page, which we see used quite a lot.
It's a great option.
Yeah, super neat. And then this is something, especially for us as consultants, we like to show roadmaps and engagement projects. And so this is something we even use a lot internally. You also have the option to export to CSV, and then also an image, very large image, I imagine. But you can also export an image, which is kind of neat. So pretty cool. Lots of movement or ability there in the way of sharing. So jumping back to the slideshow, I just want to rattle off just a few things, a few other things about advanced roadmaps rather that may be helpful to you when you're kind of making a decision about a tool for planning. So with regard to estimation, you can estimate your work with story points or time tracking. However, you can't do a hybrid of the two within one plan. There's also no native conversion of story points to time. But you could, hypothetically, if you're savvy with Jira or a Jira admin, you could actually write an automation that would shoulder this. There's no critical path functionality. Oops, jumped ahead here, sorry. There we go. No critical path functionality, but there is a lovely dependency map that I just showed you previously that you could leverage to kind of handle that. There's no baseline functionality, as advanced roadmaps is always live reporting from Jira, as we talked about earlier. There's no earliest start, and there's no cross-plan resource view. So just to kind of tie this all up, deciding factors to consider, you are working with a tool that is a native Atlassian / Jira tool, awesome integration there. If you're looking for a Gantt chart, you'll probably have to look at the next couple apps I'm about to show you. It's great for roadmaps. You are restricted to team level resourcing, and you have a wealth of visualization sharing options available to you. So definitely a strength there. All right, moving on here, let's roll into Structure and Structure Gantt. Structure at its core is an issue hierarchy app with a very robust Gantt chart add-on called Structure Gantt. It's important to note that I'm referring to actually two separate add-ons here. So you would have just with Structure, just what you see on the left in this screenshot and not what you see on the right. So you need both add-ons. It's available in Jira Cloud and Data Center. And when it comes to the tool, so within advanced roadmaps, the primary object is a plan. The primary object is actually a Gantt in Structure, which is built from a structure that you see on the left. And each Structure Gantt combo has its own definable scope, hierarchy, views, scenarios, baselines, scheduling and resourcing behavior, and also quick filters. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into Structure. So on the left side, we have what we're referring to as a structure. This should actually look very similar to advanced roadmaps with issues rolling up to epics and then to initiatives as parents as well. And then similar to advanced roadmaps, you can add additional columns with this plus button here. Lots of options here in the way of adding your fields. On the right side, we have a true Gantt chart. With regard to date behavior, as you would expect, dates are automatically determined and duration is already set based on the properties of each work item. So if I click into one of these items here, there are several options for scheduling on an item by item basis. We can observe the fixed duration that's already set, or we can set our own duration. We also have the option to toggle between auto and manual scheduling here on a per item basis. And if you're set to auto, just as a side note, your dates and the duration will be set on the estimate of this particular work item. So a lot of customization there. Let's talk about dependency behavior. So if I click into a dependency here denoted by this arrow that's connecting these two issues, we have the 4 different types of dependencies that we would expect to see with a Gantt chart: start to start, start to finish, finish to start, finish to finish. And then we also have optional lead lag time here as well. Critical path. So yes, there is critical path functionality within this tool. If I go up to this bullet icon to the top right, you can see I've already got critical path configured here, or at least toggled here. So if I had a critical path data or relevant data to critical path, you would see it all in red. Baselines. Yes, there are multiple, or opportunity to leverage multiple baselines. And the idea with a baseline is you can see how far your schedule has moved. And so in order to add additional baselines, I would click up here to no baseline, create new, and select my type. In the way of sharing visualizations, there are multiple options. You have export options, you have the ability to add your structure to Jira or Confluence or a dashboard. Very quickly, I just wanted to show you some of the settings here that are available, just to kind of show you the level of granularity you can have configuration-wise within this tool, and just kind of show you some of what's behind the scenes. So you've got some general configuration items where you can configure your start day, set your calendar, your color scheme. You have a whole host of scheduling options here where you can configure your work estimates, conduct a progress calculation. You've got some manual scheduling options. And as you can see, the list kind of goes on from here. One really cool feature is the ability to create slices of data. And what's really neat is you can actually do this based on a JQL query. And what's really cool about this is you can basically say, for this data that's based on this JQL, behave in this manner. So really kind of cool feature, I would say unique to structure between these three tools.
That's cool.
So we'll say we don't want to do that right now. We'll say cancel and go back to our main view. Let's talk about resourcing behavior, which is actually accessible if I click this person or people icon right here in the middle. And then I'm going to scroll over a little bit. There we are. Cool. We can see under this section here, down to the right, here's our resource usage. And then on the left, we have the people or resources assigned. We can see the hours assigned under resource usage in red down here. And then I also have the option to select between hours or viewing this as a percentage, which is helpful. If I move over to the resources on the left, if Brian is selected, I can click the settings icon. And then from here, these properties show how much work Brian can do in the way of units. And then we also have some other settings like time zone and the work calendar that Brian's observing. And then we also have within the availability menu, a few other settings here as well. What's nice is based on the settings, resource assignment can happen. And this is really what I want to highlight with this tool. Resource assignment can happen on the individual and team basis within this tool. So juxtaposed to advanced roadmaps where it's just team, you can actually get down to the individual with this, this feature set here. Availability, just a couple other things about resourcing. Availability of resources is handled through shared calendars with working hours and time zones, days and holidays. Resources can also be temporarily assigned a percentage reduction or expanded capacity. Concerning capacity adjustments, you can set resource units as well as a work calendar per resource. Tasks, actually something to note here too. Let me close resources here and actually go to a task. You can actually see Brian assigned to this task, which is actually pretty neat, actually right within your plan. If I click into one of these, you can actually determine how much of a resource a task can use or how many people can work on it at a time, denoted by this max units here, and then also being able to designate a default resource. It's pretty cool. So with that, just wrapping up structure. So similarly to advanced roadmaps, I just kind of talk about what else is here and just kind of briefly run through these, and then also maybe some things that are missing just to take into consideration. For one thing, there are sandbox capabilities for structure. Sadly, it is for data center only at this time. Another way of putting it is that any changes that you make in structure cloud are actually getting pushed back to Jira. So something to think about. If you're in a data center instance, yay, you've got sandboxes. There are several other estimation options. You can estimate in story points, time tracking, or formulas. You can also perform automatic conversion between story points and time, which is pretty cool. Resource leveling is available, but again, for data center only. There are no early start, early finish, late start, late finish constraints, so something else to take into consideration. And then there are no individual level skills capabilities within structure Gantt. There's this idea in planning tools of being able to designate resources and their skill set within a plan and be able to call that out within your plan, and that you'll actually see that in big picture shortly. That's not available within structure Gantt, so I wanted to call that out. And then lastly, there's no cross-plan resource view. So finally, to tie up structure here, just some deciding factors. You've got slices that allow for granular behavior, team and individual resourcing, slideshows, anxious. Team and individual resourcing, multiple baselines, duration based on estimates. Structures themselves can actually be quite useful. So going back to, we're talking about two different add-ons. The structure add-on by itself can also just be useful on its own. There are no skills, as I just mentioned. Resource leveling is only in DC, like I said. Sandboxes, like I mentioned, DC only. Lots of options for showing visualizations. So that is definitely what it has in common with advanced roadmaps. All right, let's jump to our last tool here and talk about big picture and ultimately big picture enterprise. Big picture is a multi-tool, or we kind of call it the Swiss Army knife of PPM tools within the Atlassian ecosystem and marketplace. It contains a product called Big Gantt, but also includes modules for agile and program boards, risks, roadmaps, and objectives. There's an expanded resource view, including workload plans, holiday plans, and skills. There's teams, calendars, and additional reporting if you use the full version of Big Picture. And in advanced roadmaps, everything's a plan. In structure, everything's a structure or a Gantt. The primary unit of organization within Big Picture is actually done in something called a box. A box is kind of like a plan. It's also kind of oddly like a Jira issue type. I'll explain that more as we move along. If you get Big Picture Enterprise, you also get unlimited box types. Unlimited scenarios, cross box, resource view, module renaming, tempo integration, data residency, and also some advanced reports modifications. So just drawing a further distinction between Big Picture and Big Picture Enterprise. And then as far as availability concerned, or as far as availability is concerned from an Atlassian instance standpoint, it's available in both Jira Cloud and Data Center. And I'm jumping slides again. So sorry, folks. Tool organization. So Big Picture, as I mentioned, is structured in boxes. Each box has its own definable scope, hierarchy, views, scenarios, scheduling and resourcing behavior, and quick filters. Interesting feature here, each box can actually bidirectionally sync with Trello cards. So if you're an organization that uses Trello, that may make your heart sing. Kind of a cool integration there. Box types define how boxes relate to each other with parenting, and I can show you that actually in a moment, and also contain template metadata that can be changed once a box is created. In this way, they are both like an issue type and an issue template. Some example box templates that you might leverage would be possibly maybe a portfolio, a program increment, and iteration, kind of in line with agility or agile processes or an agile approach. For more traditional planning, a box type may be a project or a phase or initiative. So with that, let's go ahead and move into Big Picture. And within Big Picture, the first thing I want to talk about is date behavior. So issues appear in the Gantt that you see on the right based on manually updated start and end dates or auto-scheduled dates based on dependency links. It does not look at estimates to determine duration. So referring to scheduling options on an item by item basis, you can select top down, bottom up, manual, or locked. So actually, if I click or right click on one of these, you can see those scheduling modes that I just referenced. And then essentially auto bottom or auto top is going to inherit either up or down the hierarchy. Let's talk about dependency behavior here. So I'm going to click out of this. And let me click on a dependency here to show you some of the dependency types. So just like structure, we have our Gantt dependency types of end to start, end to end, start to start, and start to end. And then also this option of soft. And just very briefly, soft in this case refers to dependencies that are handled via Jira links. And this allows for the traditional Gantt dependency mapping that we would expect to see with a Gantt chart, with the extra layer or addition of allowing teams to drive dependencies with native Jira linking relationships. So kind of cool hybrid options there. Some other settings available to you are being able to set lag time. So I actually closed this somewhat prematurely here. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry. You're able to set lag time and also ASAP mode, which allows for looser scheduling while still respecting the link type. So pretty cool. Okay. In reference to sandboxes, they are available in big picture, but you're limited to one private and one not private scenario. So mentioning earlier, big picture enterprise, you get unlimited sandbox. Unlimited sandboxes, what you're looking at right now is indeed big picture. You are limited to just essentially two. And so if I actually go up here, I can click live and then create a new scenario. And then you can see that I have the toggle to make it private or not private. Critical path, yes, critical path is available within big picture. If I click this eye icon up to the left, you can see that I can select critical path. And again, you'll probably see some red time bars yelling at you to make some changes. Baselines similarly are also in this menu. You can see that I also have that toggled. They can be set for the entire Gantt or actually just on a per issue basis. However, you're only allowed one baseline per issue, so keep that in mind. And this is because baseline is a Jira field, and those values are saved to a Jira field. Early start, early finish, late start, late finish constraints. No, unfortunately, those features are not available within this tool. In the realm of sharing visualizations, you can share a view. I will say, just totally my own opinion, this does kind of annoy me. The sharing options are basically lackluster. You need the addition of an add-on in order to have a broader host of sharing options. So that's one thing to take into consideration. You do need an additional add-on for sharing those. In the way of resourcing behavior, let's talk about this momentarily here. If you turn on the resourcing view, which is also done with this people icon over here, we can see unassigned information on the bottom left. We can also see assignment per resource on the right. And we can see total workload and remaining capacity if we click into one of these. So here, this is unassigned, but if I scroll over, if I can, click on Brian. That's not letting me scroll over for some reason, but we could pretend that this was Brian. You could see Brian's total workload and also his remaining capacity available. Obviously, I'm looking at unassigned here, but the view is very similar. Something important to note here, resourcing in big picture is done by the individual only. So again, just harkening back to our previous tools, advanced roadmaps is teams only, structure is both individual and team, big picture is only individual. So kind of interesting there. Availability is handled through something called a shared workload plan, a holiday plan, and individual absence adjustments. So on the individual resource level on a different screen, you can actually change where individuals are available. Capacity adjustments are also done through a shared workload plan, and then it's applied to an individual. For example, there's the standard 8 hours a day plan, and then we can assign it to each individual. Jumping over to a different feature within Big Picture that I think is actually pretty neat. So I'm going to toggle off our resourcing here. And that is the skills feature. And so in Big Picture, you can actually define different skills, and then on the work item, or Jira issue in this case, you can determine which skill this work item requires. In this case, we're going to be looking at developer or project manager, for example. But once you have a skill applied, you can use this feature called Find the Perfect Match, which takes an individual workload into account and finds the, air quotes, perfect person to assign to this task. So with that, just to show you what that looks like on the Jira side of things, let me open a story here, user story. And then if I scroll down to the bottom, actually I don't even have to scroll, there's this Big Picture skills field. So just showing you what I just talked about. I can assign a skill of developer to this user story. That probably makes sense. And then I can click Find the Perfect Match. And then hypothetically, that's going to return a list of results of who would maybe be good to work on that task. Couple of other little things as we wrap up Big Picture. Let me go back to our plan here. There's no resource leveling, so just noting that. And there is a cross-plan resource view if you use Big Picture Enterprise. So again, harkening back to, we're looking at Big Picture, there's also another opportunity with leveraging Big Picture Enterprise as a different application. Let's go back to our slideshow here. So just some deciding factors to consider when we're talking about kind of these three different tools. This is multiple tools in one. As I mentioned at the outset of the presentation here, you get a risk module, a program board if you're practicing safe, and a calendar. There's cross-plan resource views. There is a skills capability that I just showed you. There's resource contouring, no resource leveling. You do have limited configurations within a box. You really can configure by Jira project versus structure, where you kind of have the slices capability that I showed you before. And then also it requires an add-on for export of visualizations. So that's also something to consider. Big Picture, you need that additional add-on. All right, and with that, I'm going to pitch it back to Jackie to talk about Jira Line.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Sam, that was good. Thanks for walking us through
Sure,
that.
absolutely.
Love seeing those.
Happy to.
All right, so we're going to talk briefly about Jira Line. Again, we're not going to do a demo. Jira Line is such a large, capable application that actually we have entire webinars just dedicated to Align. I just was watching one the other day, so I know that there are more than a few that we have put out. You probably could even talk about Align for a week. It's that powerful of a tool. But for larger customers who have multiple portfolios or who have large portfolios, large enterprises, this can be a really good option. As you can see here, this is a good indication of what we're looking at. Sorry, it's not working for me here. I'm sorry. So as you can see here, it's got a nice breakdown of, you're starting at the strategy level, like I referenced earlier in our conversation, and then it's also accounting for themes. That's one of the good things about Align. It's not a plugin, it's a separate application. It's typically used by companies that do scale agility using something like SAFe or a Spotify model. And then, like I mentioned, it is a very powerful tool, but it's also a very expensive tool. So again, another reason why we typically only suggest this for our larger customers, because it does come with a pretty big price tag. Here's an example of a program board. For those of you who might do scaling today, maybe following the SAFe model, this is probably something that you see all the time, but this is a good representation of, this is on a feature level, how work can integrate, milestone, calling out dependencies, and it's just a nice snapshot. If you clicked into any one of these, then you, of course, would get more information. And it works with your Jira instance through a Jira connector. So it's nice that you can share the information between those applications. Like I've pointed out, because it is a little bit more complicated of a tool, there's usually a 3-month implementation timeline for setting this up. Some of the nice features that you do get with this powerful tool, though, is you get roadmap capabilities, you get OKRs, which I know are a very hot topic right now. As you saw, the program board option, you get multiple portfolio options, strategy rooms, and then, of course, dependency management. You got a small taste of that from the program board. So again, good options depending on what your portfolio needs are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so those are all the tools that we are going to cover today. A little bit about us, like Sam said earlier, a small shameless plug here. We do offer training here at XPM. We do both public and private. We have lots of free webinars. We have lots of free videos out on YouTube as well. We have lots and lots of content out there. So hopefully, if you're looking for some quick answers, anything Atlassian, go out there and take a look. I bet we have something to help you out. We do consulting. So consultants like Sam and I go in and help partners, or excuse me, we help to partner with our customers, and we help to customize Jira instances. We help set up portfolio, bring in portfolio management. We help with cloud migrations. We do a lot here. I know I'm missing some stuff. So, and then of course we do custom development. We have lots of brilliant developers on staff. So if we can't use an out-of-the-box solution, which we typically can, we can also offer custom development if that's needed. All right, and just as a call out to some of the upcoming webinars and classes that we have, which a fuller list of this can be found at xpm.com under training, but here's a small snapshot of what we have coming up in the next couple of months. And let's pop over to see what questions we have. All right, it looks like we have our first question here in advanced roadmaps. How do you change the display issue hierarchy?
Oh, yeah, it's a great question. Let me see here. So if we jump over to advanced roadmaps here, I'm looking at the initiative level here on down to task, story, and bug. It's really, really simple. If I go to this filters option here, this is where I can actually change my hierarchy. So similarly in the, and here's all the options available to me based on the hierarchy I've already set up and all the issue types within that hierarchy. So for example, if I change from initiative to epic, then you would see the hierarchy change very quickly there. And you probably actually saw that in our epic planning view as well, just to further highlight that. This is a hierarchy that's looking at epic to story. So yeah, great question.
Actually, before you click out of advanced roadmaps, there's also another question here. How do you add a field to advanced roadmaps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great question. And that's a lot of where we see the customization happening for our clients. So if I go to this field drop down, you can see the fields that are currently out on the plan. I can rearrange them. But if I go into manage custom fields, what I can do is see the fields that I've already added, but then I can also add additional custom fields. And what's really nice about this menu is that right out of the gates, you have this wonderful green button letting you know whether or not that field that you want to add is supported or not. And so from up here, you can actually show unsupported fields. So this is where you can manage disappointment if your field isn't supported, but then also see what other fields are supported. So yeah, great question.
That's great. Looks like another question, and I apologize. I'm assuming this is for advanced roadmaps, but
yeah,
how do I get access to this tool? Does it require a separate purchase for this functionality?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, so you, for advanced roadmaps specifically, which is My personal favorite tool. You need on cloud, you need a premium licensing tier, or you need to be on what did I say at the beginning? Data center. I'm totally blanking. You need to be on data center enterprise. You need to be on enterprise data center instance, or actually leveraging a premium tier of cloud in order to get advanced roadmaps. I will say something that I do often for demos. You are free to actually go and spin up your own test cloud site. That's something Jackie and I do a lot for clients as well, where we want to have a plan, not like this perfectly static and sterile XPM demo environment, but we want to have something that we can actually go in and make changes to without affecting other folks that use a demo site. You're totally free to spin up your own cloud site, and then you can leverage Jira Premium for 30 days and mess around with advanced roadmaps. So highly suggest that you take advantage of that. It's a great way to get introduced to the tool and kind of mess around.
Great idea.
Yeah.
All right, and it doesn't look like we have any other questions right now. So if not, thank you so much for your time today. Please feel free to reach out to us. I'll put our information back here. If you have any follow-up questions, this is both of our email addresses, so always happy to hear from you. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.